But now it's, well, how? And some of those things, I wanted to run by the example that I found in his khutbah in this lecture, where he mentions there's four types of people. So the first of which, they don't change. They choose, not to. But he used a scenario. So if you can imagine, there's a town, a village or something. Right? There's a town, and nearby there's some water source. And every year that town floods. Every year. That group of people who don't do anything, they just say, it's flood season. Well, what you want me to do? It's flood season. You know what I'm saying? And then you get the other three people who are actually trying to change. So the first one, they board up everything. They build walls. They try to keep all water out. And what happens is the pressure just builds and eventually just does even more damage than the previous years to the town. And that's sort of comparative to like that person that keeps their anger in all day, every day, and then one time you just say something to them and they snap.
Or just avoiding doing things at all costs, and it piles up
On them, and now they're like, it could be even with health. Like you're just like, yo, I wanted to work out 4 years ago, and now like I'm choosing which leg I want to keep because man has just lost the plot. So it gets that bad. And then the second, so that's from the three people who do change. That's the first. The second would be the people who try to figure out the why in everything. So if you can imagine, these people are like, yo, where is this water coming from? I'm gonna go find it and stop it at the source. And they go, never come back. They just lose themselves in it for whatever reason. And that's synonymous with, somebody who's, they don't really get anything done. They try to psychoanalyze everything, but they don't actually do the work. And this reminds me, I was in class, bro. I was studying with one of these guys, and we got a final in maybe 2 days, or it's a while now. So I don't know if we had it in 2 days or a day, the day after the day we chose to sit and study. And instead of saying something like, okay, we're studying physics, let's start chapter 14. This is the equation. This is how we got to apply it. This guy goes, so in the beginning, there was gravity. And he starts like breaking down the equations. I'm like, brother, they're not asking us to write an essay on everything that's in the equation. They're asking us to use it for something. So I'm like, why are you trying to psychoanalyze and like derive all these equations that they gave to you? It's like that person who tries to figure out every little object and where this comes from, and what trauma happened when I was younger that made me the way I am. I'm not saying there's absolutely zero good in those things, but come on, brother. Yeah. We only got 60, 70, and maybe 80 years if we're lucky on this planet. Like, get to work. So that's the second people. And then the third are the righteous ones, the ones who are doing it correctly. They're the ones like, listen, we're not gonna board this up. This is something that happens, and we're not gonna try to. We can't like make ourselves not human, right? By curbing desires completely. And we're not going to be those people that try to sit here and try to figure out why 12%. Instead, we're going to accept it and say, okay, well, how do we minimize damage and maximize benefit? And so what they did is when it flooded, they built channels so that all the water got rerouted to their farmland and actually grew their crops, as opposed to destroying their village. And that's a perfect way to live your life. So if you're a person who might get upset or there are ways to channel these things for good, right? There's a lot of people who may be unmarried and they're finding it challenging, staying away from the opposite sex. Well, once you do get married, I mean, that's why marriage is prescribed for you. We're not saying curb that desire altogether. There's a way to channel it into what is beneficial. Exactly. So I thought about that with everything. Like when you get frustrated or whatever, there's always, there's brothers that we know that work kind of like crazy because of that. There's I like going for walks. I like having, you got to have something that you do just for you. And that could be anything to sort of let out steam. But yeah, I wanted to tell you that example.